Two dicks, wow.
Yeah! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast.
And having to go, yeah, but he did kind of do this.
What I'm hearing is you just want Tom Brady dead. Like that's all I'm hearing at this point. You just want Brady dead.
Well, not anymore. He's retired now, so I'm good with that. I don't want him calling games anymore because holy hell, he's hard to listen to.
Enough angry and, depressing from myself. Sterling, thank you for being able to sit there as my therapist for this episode.
Start the game already!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for week number 2. Sterling, I know you're a little bit sick, buddy, so I already kind of know how you're feeling, but yeah, football is alive and it's well. One of us is a lot happier with the results of week 1 than the other. And that's probably where we should start, is obviously the Steelers going up against the Jets. I know we both looked at that game last week and it had the lowest scoring in the bet for the bettors. And, it didn't have that.
Nope. Both teams almost hit the over themselves. The Jets were only, I think, 1.5 points behind hitting that over. So it was set at 33.5. And the final score was 34-32.
Yeah, it was... Watching that game, again, because myself, I have a dual monitor system here for my computer set up, and I had one game on this screen, one game on this screen, and then I also had my phone also playing a game. And I said, out of solidarity to you, my buddy, I'm going to have the Steelers game on my phone. Just to kind of peek in every once in a while, while we text each other. It's one of those things, say, hey, like, oh, did you see this? No, I didn't. I wanted to be there for my buddy. And that ended up becoming the game that I was probably watching the most, which was, I think, a shocker to both of us because, A, the Jets' offense looked unstoppable, and B, the Steelers' offense was more than capable of keeping up with them, and they looked quite good. And then obviously Chris Boswell doing Chris Boswell things ends up hitting a 60-yarder?
60-yarder, yeah, career long for him. 60-yard game-winning field goal.
Yeah,
and there was still leg on that thing too. Like, you see it go through and you're like, man, he could have hit that from 66.
That it easily could have been a 65-yard field goal in that game, but that
was great, I think, and it probably does so much for Aaron Rodgers' confidence to be able to look at this and go, I've finally got a kicker again that I can rely on as long as I get him within range. Because how many one-score games did the Jets lose last year because their kicker couldn't make kicks?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. And Rodgers now has a team that they've got a kicker that can do that. Probably the best in the league right now, I think, is Chris Boswell. And then, yeah, the defense struggled mightily last week. That was bad. I remember throughout the game, I said, win or lose, I don't give a fuck about Victory Monday. That defense is in the room watching tape tomorrow. They better be, because this is bad. Granted, there are a lot of fresh faces, and a lot of those fresh faces are fairly large egos. They're big names. They're Pro Bowlers, so they all have their own mindset, mentality, and approach to the game. The issue is team sport. So these guys need to start coming together and knowing where everybody else is on the field so that they can put the best product out there. And I think that will happen. It will take some time because it's so many big names. But once this, if this defense can get gelled with Aaron Rodgers just methodically moving the football and giving them time to rest, that is the biggest thing you and I have talked about over the last 3 to 4 years, is the defense is so exhausted by the time we get to week 12 that the Steelers start to slip. and they start to lose games as the season nears its end because they're all just too tired. They might not have that issue this year, which is a great thing. And then the other thing that needs to change is that running game needs to get going, which was shocking because we've talked about how it's Arthur Smith. Is Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers going to be able to get along because Arthur Smith loves to just run the ball? And the run game was almost non-existent last week until they finally made that shift from Kenneth Gainwell to Jalen Warren. We saw a few bigger ones getting broken. But those two things, if the run game and the defense can get going, this Steelers team might be unstoppable.
Yeah, needless to say, like I've been very critical of this Steelers team all offseason, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
And like I will sit back and say that if this is the Steelers team that we are going to see with the defense performing better for more the more normal from what we've seen
Has to be better.
from the defense, then yeah, this is a team that I don't know wins the Super Bowl, but they win a playoff game. They break that curse. And they might be a team that tries to go up against the Bills in the playoffs, and you just hope that that's not in the wild card round type situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a team where, again, you look at them and go, it was week 1 against a team both of us said they should have easily handled. So if there's any negative towards this game, it's that you're looking at it going, you should have beaten this team pretty handily, and you allowed the Jets. Because I remember there was a point when we were texting last week where you said, I don't care, I just want them to beat the Jets because it's unacceptable if they don't. And it like that is 100% accurate. That is 100% one of those things you just sit back and go like, yeah, like I know I even said to you, I said I am rooting for the Steelers to lose every single game because I hate seeing Aaron Rodgers win. And your response was great. It was, I get it. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with Aaron Rodgers there, this was the first year where I was like, you know what? If they go 0-17, I'll be okay with that because fuck Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, man. We talk about it a lot with this team where we say, oh, this is a game they should win. They should win this easily. But the reality is, this Pittsburgh Steelers team wins more one-score games than anybody else in the league. It's what Mike Tomlin does. He doesn't go for the foot on the throat and we're gonna run up the score and put up 40 to your 10. It's always, we're up by 4, we're good. Let's just let the defense do the thing, get a turnover, chew that clock out, and that's what they do. And in years past, if you had told me the Jets were going to put up 32 points, I probably wouldn't have even turned on the game. Even last week, if you had said beforehand, hey, I'm from the future, Jets are scoring 32 points on your defense this week, I probably wouldn't have watched the game.
Yeah.
Because I would have gone, oh, okay, so we're going to lose 32-12. Great. That's a fun way to start the year. But for some bizarre reason, the geriatric Aaron Rodgers was able to throw for 240 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, which he's the first quarterback to do that in a Steelers uniform since Ben Roethlisberger in 2008, in week 1 at least, to throw for 240 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 1. Roethlisberger in 2008 was the last time that happened. So it's a promising start, but as you brought up, there were a lot of storylines. There was a lot of emotion in this game. Justin Fields has something to prove. He looked at this game and went, you guys benched me for Russell cringe fucking TikTok Wilson. So,
Who looked
yeah,
horrible, by the way,
he
against
looked
the
horrible,
Giants when he played for the
right?
Giants.
And I said it to you multiple times throughout that game last week. I was like, where was this Justin Fields last season? If he had played like this for the Steelers in the first 4 weeks of the year, he wouldn't have gotten benched. But it was barely squeaking out games last year, at low scoring games at that. Edging out a win when you're putting up 34 points feels a lot different than squeaking out a win at 12 points.
Oh yeah. Like, listen, you and I agree on one thing, and it's we both like defensive football where we like to see our defenses get low scoring. I differ a little bit more going, I would rather see my team win 35-28 as opposed to winning 24 to, or let's just say 20-17. I'm tired of seeing these low scoring defensive battles where one team just barely ekes out the other. I would rather see explosive, lots of points, lots of score from my offense. That's what I would rather see. And you kind of got what I would hope to watch more of from my team last week.
Yep.
But yeah, it's the Steelers. They impressed, man. They really impressed. Again,
Yeah.
defense needs to get better, but you just have to hope that's just one of the that's just like a drop in the bucket as opposed to being an entire gallon being poured.
Yes, 100%. And like I like to see those scoring games too. I don't mind the 20-17 so much, but I am tired of, unless it's Steelers Ravens, I don't want to see a 10-9, 10-6 final.
Yeah.
Like seeing my defense win the game. It's 35-33, and the defense goes out there and gets a big strip sack recovery or a big interception, and that seals the game. That I love to see. But I don't need to see 10-6 finals, because the defense just completely takes over the game and the offense can't do anything. Like that. That's where I'm all for more offensive output, especially seeing the last 4 seasons where it's, another thing I said to you last week. I'm looking at these throws Aaron Rodgers is making, and it's like, oh my God, it's an accurate quarterback again. So many of those throws on third downs to convert, I'm looking at it going, if that's Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky, that's an interception. That might even be a pick 6, because the accuracy has been so bad the last few years. Seeing a guy that can thread it in there and make those tough plays, it's nice to see again. As much as I hate Aaron Rodgers. Now, DK Metcalf needs to stop dropping the ball, because he had 2 really bad drops on wide open catches that, granted, it wouldn't have been like a big 60-yard play, but
First downs.
A 3rd and 2 instead of a 3rd and 10.
Yeah.
Which opens up the playbook. So I would like to see those mistakes corrected. But again, it's
week 1.
First week, because we didn't see Aaron Rodgers in preseason. So that was the first example of him in game situations. So hopefully, in an ideal world, there's nowhere to trend but upwards from here.
Yeah, that at the end of the day has to be the hope for the Steelers. And going into week number 2, going up against the Seattle Seahawks, you're not facing a juggernaut team here. You're going up against what I would say is a decent defense, but their offense, I say, has a lot of question marks. And this is a game that, looking at it going, if the Steelers allow similar points against this Seattle offense, I'm not saying you hit the panic button, but boy oh boy, the case has now been opened and the finger is on the button. You're just not pushing down on it yet. And that's weird to say after only 2 weeks. But again, we talked about this Jets offense not being something that we expected. They have pieces, man. They have pieces, but by no means did we expect them to put up 32. Like, again, you put it best. If I was the future teller and I went back to you and said, hey, the Steelers are going to have the Jets score 32 points on them, and you say you're not going to watch that. Again, if I'm the future teller coming to you and say, hey, by the way, the Seahawks are putting up 29 points against your Steelers defense, you're going to be sitting back going like, oh my God, like, what the hell is wrong? And again, you're not pushing the panic button, but the case is open and the finger's on the button.
No, I will say this though, come week 3, if a similar situation happens, then the panic button being hit. The reason for not hitting it this week is a similar reason to last week. There is going to be some emotion to this game. This is DK Metcalf, first time going up against the Seahawks after they traded him away. And so he's going to want to prove that they made a mistake. But at the same time, that Seahawks offense is going to be going, okay, Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba especially, like, you need to show why we let DK Metcalf go. You need to prove that you are that number one that's replacing him. And
Yeah.
so I would not be shocked to see Smith and Jigba have a really big game, especially with Joey Porter Jr. being out of this game. You know, no Joey Porter Jr., no Deshaun Elliott on defense. And so it really is Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey on opposite sides of the field. And then your safeties are Juan Thornhill and Jabril Peppers, who they just signed. And so that secondary isn't quite as strong as it was looking when we were going into week one with those two guys being out.
Yeah. I'm saying if the Seahawks put up those like 20, 30 points in this game, that's when the case gets open and the finger gets put on the button. They're sure as hell not going to push the panic button if they have another bad defensive week, but you're starting to get to that point. If it happens in week 3,
if it's on the ground, I might be hitting that panic button. If they let Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet put up similar rushing numbers to what Brace Hall did, then that panic button might be getting hit on this run defense at the very least.
Yep. It's
I'm
not the full defense.
More of an air raid out of this Seahawks. Like, if they're putting up the passing yards, I won't be terribly shocked to see that against an injured secondary with Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, those are two talented guys.
Yep.
So it wouldn't shock me. But if it's on the ground, I'm going to be worried.
Yeah, without a doubt. I still don't even think the panic button even gets hit, even if the ground game. Yeah, it's over top of at that point, and if it happens in week 3
against the Patriots, then you're slamming that button.
Yes, you're not just slamming it; you're breaking the table while you slam it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so obviously you extremely happy with your team to get that win.
Not just my team, that was honestly, aside from one thing, that was the best possible week 1 I could have gotten. Honestly, my Steelers win in a thriller. The Bengals only barely beat the Browns because the Browns miss a field goal. So I'm like, okay, both those teams look trash. And then the Ravens absolutely collapse and give up 16 points to the Bills to lose a game on Sunday Night Football. The only thing that would have made that week better is if the Packers had lost 2.
Yeah, we will talk about the Bills and Ravens game here in a little bit. That was
the only thing that did not make it a perfect week for me. Because you know me, I hate the Packers too, because they took a Super Bowl away from me back in 2010. So,
if you remember that year, it would have been Bears versus Steelers in that Super Bowl matchup. But
that was before we knew each other though, so we wouldn't have got to enjoy it.
We
were only like 10 years old.
What, 2010? I would have been 13. Yeah, 13 or 14. However math works and however old I am, sometimes I forget that number. But yeah, Steelers gave you a good week. My team, well,
it was not a great week for the Bears.
Here's the thing, is that I look so dejected about what that team ultimately did, but watching that game, there was a lot of things that were still very well done in that game for the Bears that you can look at as a Bears fan and go, there's hope. There is light at the end of a very, very long and dark tunnel. Because you watch that opening drive. The Bears were one of 3 teams last year, in which included the Bears, Steelers, funny enough, the Seahawks, who didn't score an opening series touchdown last year. Bears go out there and they get a touchdown on their opening drive. And it wasn't one of those opening drives of where it was all perfect and perfection, where it was just a methodical drive, like here, boom, 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 boom. There was mistakes made. It wasn't perfect. And you're sitting back going like, man, if this is what this offense looks like on their first series, where it's not perfect, and they're able to still march down against one of these most terrifying defensive coordinators you can go up against in football, this is going to give you a lot of hope for this team. And then not only that, watching the defense go 2 series 3 and out, where both times on third down, they sack the quarterback, which is something I know for a fact you knew me last year was screaming at the top of my lungs going, you need to get those sacks on third downs. You need to get the quarterback off the field. And I'm watching this going like, man, Jalen Johnson isn't in the game. Kyler Gordon isn't in the game. You also had TJ Edwards not in the game. So 3 of some of the most important pieces on your defense are out of the game. Because again, it's not like you're looking at the Minnesota Vikings and going, we can be fine. They don't have any receivers. They just casually have Justin Jefferson. And if Jalen Johnson is out there, Justin Jefferson has a quiet night. He doesn't get that touchdown late in the game. If Kyler Gordon's out there, he helps with the tight ends. If TJ Walker's out there, he helps out with Aaron Jones and a lot of that stuff. So you're just looking at it going, this is a game where if the Bears defense was fully healthy, it's a different story. The biggest thing in this game was the missed throws from Caleb Williams, which is so frustrating because you saw some missed throws last year from time to time, and you're like, it's a rookie quarterback, you expect some of those things. And I will always say a quarterback is allowed to have 3 missed throws a game. You're allowed that because the quarterback position is so hard in the NFL. Sometimes you just miss it because you can't be perfect on every single throw, whether it's your feet, whether it's the way that you're setting up your body, whether you just read it at the last moment and you just try to rip it and it just goes a little high. But it was the times when Caleb missed some of these throws. And people are going like, oh, Caleb Williams is an inaccurate quarterback. And then you watch him while on the move launch the ball while he's being pushed out of bounds to Rome Odunze in a perfect window where you just go, he's clearly not an inaccurate quarterback because he does shit like this. He puts it through 2 defenders' hands to get it to a wide receiver. We saw that a ton last year. And you're just looking at it like, man, in the fourth quarter, there was a throw where Caleb Williams just launched it 5 feet over DJ Moore's head. It would have been an easy walk-in touchdown. Bears would have had, they would have had the 2-minute warning alongside with another timeout, so they would have been able to get the ball back with a lot of time still remaining if they could get the 3 and out. And that one, you just go, man, like you miss that throw. Like that's an inexcusable miss. And then you also have the next play where Caleb is getting tackled while he's throwing the ball, and he almost gets DJ Moore killed. And you're like, if that last pass was accurate, DJ Moore doesn't take that shot. Caleb Williams also doesn't take that shot. And you still have that much more time on the clock. And I said this watching that game, like after it was over. The clock for Caleb Williams has now started for me. And what I mean by that is when Justin Fields was in year number 3, around the halfway point of that season, I said the last 8 games for Justin Fields are going to be the deciding factor of whether or not he can be the quarterback of the future for this team. We knew the Bears were getting the first overall pick because of how bad the Panthers were. That was a complete known. The reason why I'm already starting this clock a lot sooner for Caleb Williams is because he has the weapons. He has the offensive line. Now, the offensive line wasn't perfect in that game. If Caleb Williams didn't have some of those evading moves to get away from some of those sacks, the Bears probably would have given up 6 or 7 sacks in that game. But Brian Flores is a madman, so I'm not going to say that's an every week type situation. I look at that and I go, the inaccuracy from the passing, that can't happen. And if we're week 7, 8, 9, and it's every single week going like, man, he's just missing too many throws. At that point, I'm going to be sitting back going, unless the second half is like a complete 180 on those misses, I'm sitting back going like, it's time to start looking at quarterbacks. Yep. Because you cannot have the guys that you have on your team and have all of those missed throws.
100%. And honestly, my biggest concern with his missed throws is most of them are coming when he's not under duress. That's where my concern is. Like you said, when he's on the sideline or he's being chased down and he's got a guy right on his heels, he's getting it in there just right on target. And he's so accurate when he's under pressure, almost like when he's not thinking about it because he's in the moment, he's more accurate. It's when he's got that time where he knows he has a step or two as he's running out of the pocket and he's like, I'm not going to get hit. He overthrows it. And it's almost like he's overthinking it and therefore overthrowing it. And that is where my concern is. But with Ben Johnson, as he said, he's okay with mistakes as long as the mistakes are not repeated. And so that is where I'm going to be looking in the weeks to come is, are these mistakes becoming lesser and lesser each week? Because yeah, that first drive for the Bears, it looked good, but there were still concerns for me with that O-line. The number of times Caleb Williams had to scramble and the fact that he had to run it in to get that touchdown because his receivers just couldn't get open, that was a concern. And then from that point on, it felt like the offense was on its back foot. And you're right, Brian Flores, one of the masterminds on defense right now. He's one of these guys I hope never leaves the defensive coordinator position because it's so fun to watch his defenses. I don't want him to become a head coach again because he is such a devious mastermind when it comes to defense. He should always be a DC. He will be the best. But
Pittsburgh Steelers new head coach 2030.
And Pittsburgh Steelers new DC. Come be the defensive coordinator. Like, please, let's do the DC OC thing with the offensive coordinator being the head coach. Let's do it. But the Bears have got to not panic. Because, yes, it didn't look great. You dropped a game to a quarterback you should have beaten because J.J. McCarthy had never played a snap in the NFL. And you let him get 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against a defense that was meant to be better. Yes, missing some pieces. And I believe in that fourth quarter, one of your other corners went down with a bit of a tweak in his back or his knee or something as well. I saw some frustration, and so that opened up some more windows. And I was saying it all through the second half, as soon as the second half started, because I was watching the game at work with another buddy who also watches football, so we had it on the small screen while we're doing our job. And I kept saying, I was like, if JJ can hit JJ, this Bears team is in trouble. And then I saw them make a connection late in the third quarter for a first down. And I looked at him and I went, we're cooked, because we both picked the Bears to win. And I was like, we're not going to hit our bet because they just made that connection. And I think it's just going to start to roll. And it did. And the Bears just didn't have the ability to answer on offense. And that is what needs to change. The Bears need to be able to look at this and go, okay, the defense can't get it done. We have what's meant to be a generational quarterback. We have a guy who was touted to be able to take a team on his shoulders and win games. Ben Johnson needs to bring that out of Caleb Williams now. That is what the next 15 weeks is all about. Is, can you get Caleb Williams from the guy who's just scrambling for his life to the guy who is making the smart decisions in the moment to go, I'm going to get the 2 yards here so that I can get the next play.
Yeah. And
it's
you know
that
what? Like,
instead of, I'm gonna haul it downfield and hope, or I'm going to throw it into a bad situation. Yes, I know he was going down as he threw that, but that was a hospital ball. I saw that and I was like, you almost ended DJ Moore's career right there. Like, we could have had the next Chris Olave.
Yeah.
And so that made me very angry when I saw that. I was like, do not throw that ball ever again, Caleb Williams.
And you know what I will say is that, like, there was one thing that you're saying there is where I want to see you take those 2 yards. Caleb was doing that in this game.
What?
But he
Early in the game.
he was doing it still even late in the game as well. It was just one of those things where he was inaccurate on some of those ones as well.
Yeah.
But I think it was a situation of where it might have been a little too late type situation. But yeah, again, week number 1 for this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to sit back and be like, oh, it's completely over and this, that, and the other thing. Like, it's a tough loss. I walked into that week, and you heard me. I said this team's gonna somehow disappoint me, and they did. So it's going to be another situation for me continuing to go down the line, and where I'm like, this team needs to prove to me that they can win before I really actually start to care. Because even again, like all the hype of the off season and this, that, and the other thing, I just continue to sit back and go, man, I just need you guys to prove to me that you can do something. Because yeah, I love everything that this team has done moves wise these last couple years. But again, like until you prove it to me, what's the point of caring? And
I want to see this team outside of the division. You know, you guys have a tough start to your year,
yep.
having to play division rivals right up front. That's hard for a younger quarterback in a new system that is being heralded as the savior of a team that has never had a 4,000-yard passer, that has never had an MVP quarterback. Like it's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see what they can do outside of the division, because that's going to be where they truly start to grow and build that confidence. It's hard to do against a defensive mastermind in Brian Flores. It's going to be hard to do against a Packers team that is currently rising right now. They are looking good. They are looking like Jordan Love might be that next one in line for them, unfortunately.
Stop that. No, stop that talk.
I want to see the Bears play some games outside the division, just so we can see Ben Johnson finally get him to calm Caleb Williams to calm down. Because I think that's what it is. It's too much pressure on this young guy, and he's not handling it well.
Yeah. We'll see. Again, it's the Lions this week. It's going to be an emotional storyline type week for Ben Johnson. I know I was listening to the Pivot yesterday. Jalen Johnson was featured on it, and they were kind of asking him about it. Like, how do you feel about going into this Lions game? He goes, it's going to be a big one for coach. Like, we know, like, even Amon-Ra St. Brown on his podcast this week was saying, like, the second that Ben walks into that building, he's getting booed. And it's like, like everyone knew that was going to happen and all of this sort of stuff. And it's expected. But like with how bad the Lions played last week, and they played pretty goddamn bad. This is kind of a must win for both teams. It almost feels like, because the Lions, they need to sit back and prove that they aren't just a Ben Johnson merchant on offense and an Aaron Glenn merchant on defense, and that, you know, Dan Campbell is actually a coach that can prove it. And the Bears need to do this just so they can prove that they can win football games. And that's what it's going to be. It's two teams that had ugly losses for various different reasons against division opponents that both need a win, and both need a win for various different reasons. And thank God I am going to be on the call of a football game during this time, so I don't have to have the emotions of watching it. I'm still going to watch the game when I get home, but I'm just going to have it recorded and be able to skip through it. I'm going to know the result because I'm going to be checking in, but I'm going to be watching just to kind of ultimately get that view afterwards. But I know if I'm going to need to be satisfied or just like quickly watching it on like 2.5 speed, or I watch it on normal speed type situation. It's going to be really, really interesting to potentially see. But going back to the end of last Sunday, where we saw the Bills take on the Ravens, where at one point the Ravens looked like they were going to completely run away with that game. And I know in the fourth quarter, you and I were texting throughout this game going like, man, the Ravens are just kind of having this one. I know at one point I was sitting back going like, you know what? I kind of just want to turn this game off. It feels like this game is over. It's the fourth quarter. They're up by 15 here at the moment. Like, I'm just, you know, I might just end up sitting back and just not watching it. And I finally came to the decision, you know what? I am going to just have this on in the background. I'm going to watch some YouTube. And then the Bills got that score. It's okay. Yeah, good for you. You need a defensive stop, or you need a defensive turnover. Oh, Derrick Henry, you're fumbling the ball. Oh, okay. Oh, Bills, you're gonna go score. Oh, You get another defensive stop. And you and I, like, I remember texting you saying, like, I can't believe this game. You're going, like, yeah, Ravens just really taking a hold of it. No, buddy. Like, it's turn on the TV.
Yeah,
Get the
yeah, because
immediate.
I did turn it off when the Ravens went to 40. When it went 40-25, that was the point where I was like, oh, okay, this is over now.
Yep.
You know, the Bills just haven't been able to get enough going. Derrick Henry's just running all over them. I did turn it off. And then
Yep.
you were like, no, you should maybe check this back out. And I was like, oh, it's a game again. And so I did. I turned it back on because holy crap, the Bills, Josh Allen basically went to the entire league and was like, yeah, this is why I won the MVP last year. No more of this. Should he have? Shouldn't he have? I won it. I deserved it. I'm the MVP.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the NFL schedule makers kind of knew what they were doing with this one, where it was obviously we know these two teams are going to be facing each other. We find out which teams are going to be facing each other, I think, in like January type stuff. But then obviously, it was like the schedule makers was like, all right, week one, there's so much controversy over the MVP award this year that this is basically just going to be like who should have won it. And Josh Allen not only went out there and proved that he should have won it, he just whipped his dick out and slapped Lamar Jackson with it and saying, yeah, it really was never your award, buddy. And guess what? It's not even going to be your award this year either. Because holy shit, man. Like, we talked about it in the podcast or in the prediction video or the game predicts video. We've probably already said it in this one. But that was probably the best game we're going to see this year.
It very well could be the best game we see until we likely see these two teams meet again in the playoffs, whether that's wild card, division, AFC championship. Who's to say? That's a long season ahead before that gets figured out. But these two teams put on a hell of a show, but it really was Josh Allen against Derrick Henry. It wasn't really Josh Allen against Lamar Jackson. And that is the telling point, because you want your quarterback to be the one that's deciding that, as they're the one making those decisions. It's unfortunate for Derrick Henry that after such a phenomenal game, he was so good in the first half. He controlled the game in the first half. He was on pace to possibly break the single game rushing record because he was going so insane. And then they kind of sat him down a little bit in the third quarter, and they had Justice Hill out there more.
Which is something they did a lot of last year too.
Right? But then as the Bills start to mount a comeback, they go, oh, okay, we got to put Derrick back in, and he fumbles it. And that's the point where you go, is the rest and recovery really the best route to go with a guy who is so much about momentum? Derrick Henry is a momentum quarter or running back. You know, you keep that ball in his hands, he's going to keep running it down your throat. You sit him down for too long, and he's got to build that up again. And that's what we saw. It's so unfortunate that what everybody's going to remember from that game is his fumble as opposed to the dominant first half that he had.
Yeah, and it really was dominance. And this is almost starting to get to the point now where we're talking about both the Bills and the Ravens, of where you have their head coaches and you're just looking at them going like, man, it almost feels like some of the decisions you guys make from time to time are costing your teams in ways that you will never win a Super Bowl. Because again, we talked about it last year with Harbaugh, with some of those decisions of why aren't you playing Derrick Henry more? Like, why isn't he getting the ball? Why is it Justice Hill or whoever they had as a backup? And you see it again this year where it's like Derrick Henry talked this offseason about how this is probably his most productive offseason, where he got his body into a position of where he feels the best that he's felt at this stage in his career. In those types of games, man, like, I know it's week one and you don't want to potentially put risk of injury, but to blow that lead like that when you have Derrick Henry playing the way that he was in that game is inexcusable in a sense. And it's getting to the point now where you're just looking at things going like, is Harbaugh the guy to lead this team back to a Super Bowl? Which is insane to talk about. It's like talking about Mike Tomlin on whether or not the Steelers should fire him.
It
It's a
is.
crazy thing to talk about.
It is, but that narrative is very real and it is very out there now because we've seen it time and time again from John Harbaugh, where there are too many situations where the final decision and the outcome of the game ultimately ends up resting on his shoulders. How many times have we seen him go for two to win a game and it backfires? Or now we're starting to see how often does he decide, oh, we're going to rest Derrick Henry because we're up by so much, and then the team just starts to let the other team back into it. It's not a good look, and it's something that's going to be watched with scrutiny the rest of this year as a result. The Ravens, they can dominate and blow out teams like the Jags and the Browns, the Jets, like whoever else in the AFC you want. But now there's that narrative. Can they beat the Bengals? Can they beat the Bills? Can they beat the Chiefs?
Can they beat the Chargers?
Can they beat the Chargers? And as always, there's always tough, gritty wins and losses against the Steelers too. And I think those two games now this season are likely going to be deciding factors in which team wins this division.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I look forward to seeing those Ravens Steelers games because often it's every single year we see it be a split. We often do see it be a split, but who's going to kind of come out on top? Again, is this Steelers team what they were in week 1? Is this Ravens team just going to continue to find ways to lose games as opposed to win games? It's going to be really interesting with that team, and man, the Bills, they just need to kind of continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're winning in ways of where it's not necessarily pretty. Like Josh Allen doesn't have a number one receiver. He doesn't have it's a committee.
Yeah, his number one receiver is whichever guy he sees open that he's going to throw the ball to.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. Like if you're wearing a blue jersey and you're open, Josh Allen's going to find you. And now it's going to be, can he do that against the Bengals and the Chiefs? He's shown in the last couple of years he kind of has the Ravens number. He seems to have the better of Lamar Jackson when it comes to head between the two of them. Can he do that against Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes now?
Yeah. It's again, like I've always said that I think Josh Allen is the third best quarterback in the NFL. And I always had Lamar Jackson firmly at number 4. My list has always been Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. That is where my top 5 has lied predominantly these last couple of years. And I still think it is that way. And it's going to be such a fun NFL season to just see some of these teams go out there. I know I was saying to my old man this week, I'm like, man, it's going to be really interesting to see what my Bears are going to be, because if they're going to be so up and down this year, it's just going to be one of those years where it's like, hey, if the Chargers are playing in a game, that's going to be really exciting, but the Bears are also playing, I might choose that Chargers game because I just want to watch really good football. Now, I'm likely going to have both games on, but, it's going to be one of those things where it's a lot of really, really good football. But I know we kind of teased it a little bit in our week game prediction video. Our top 5 and bottom 5. Again, we are doing it this year like we do every single year. So essentially what it has is we take our top 5 teams and our bottom 5 teams. Again, we'll start at number 5 for our top 5 and work our way up. We'll start at, what would it be, 28, moving our way to 32. And so, yeah, for our top 5, typically the way we always start this, I'll let you talk about our top 5 team in the league right now.
Yep. Number 5 is, a team that it was really the only spot that we weren't sure on initially. The other four in this list were definitive. The fifth was just, who was the most impressive, and it pained us both to do this, but that was Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. They were able to get it done convincingly in week 1 against the Detroit Lions, who it was their division. The last 2 years, it's been the Detroit Lions division. And the Green Bay Packers quietly sat them down and went, no. And I know usually we don't include the Thursday night game in our decision making here, but really with how well they handled the Commanders, and they made Jaden Daniels have the worst game of his career at this point. And after the game, the fans were definitively chanting, "Thank you, Jerry, for giving them Micah Parsons." This Packers team could be a force down the stretch through this season, and if they start gelling, look out, because we could have another powerhouse in the NFC, as much as both of us will hate that.
I'm not going to talk about the Packers because fuck the Packers. So, Eagles are our fourth team on this list. Again, we both look at the Eagles and confidently say this is probably the best constructed team in the NFL. But we often also say that with this being the best constructed team in the NFL, they also have like just a coach that you just never have any confidence in with Nick Sirianni, and you're just constantly looking at him going like, man, like you're trying to find your ways to lose your team games. And even going back to week 1, losing Jalen Carter is a big thing. But I said it to you right after that Thursday night game. The Eagles looked unprepared going into week 1. It was almost like it was one of those games where it was like, yeah, we don't have to worry about the Cowboys. They just lost Michael Parsons. They're nothing. Like, they looked unprepared.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
with that being said, when they looked unprepared like that, they still won, and we both look at each other and go, imagine what this team's going to look like when they are prepared. And but yeah, right now, until we actually see what they're capable of prepared-wise, we have to put them at number 4.
Yeah, well, and that's why they're at that 4 spot too. It's because they didn't win that game. CeeDee Lamb lost that game.
They survived that game.
Exactly. And so if the Eagles can get rolling, like we're pretty sure they can, as long as Nick Sirianni stays out of the way, that they will likely just climb this list.
Yeah.
In at number 3 is the Baltimore Ravens, who had that crushing collapse to the Bills. They looked good through 3.5 quarters of football, 3 3/4 of football. It was the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter where the Ravens started showing maybe they don't have what it takes to thrive under that pressure. And so they're still in our top 5 because that was a phenomenal game. They played great through the first 45 minutes, 50 minutes. It was the end that is the reason that they dropped to number 3. Because honestly, I think we were probably both looking at them as being the number 1 up until that last 4 minutes of that football game on Sunday night last week. So Ravens in at number 3.
Yeah, and we will say the Ravens, or at least in my opinion, the Ravens, if they drop this week, this is a team that is very quickly going to be able to drop out. Because again, they are the only team in our top 5 that has a loss at this current moment. And so they're going to be on high alert to be dropping out of this list quickly. But with the way that they played, if they play any other team in the league other than the Bills, they probably win that game. Or they maybe not every single team. If they go up against 30 other teams in the NFL, they probably win that game. But with our number 2 team, that is the Los Angeles Chargers. This is the team that I have been saying pretty much for the last couple weeks now, that this is the team to beat in the AFC West. I know we both said it's kind of the Chiefs division until proven otherwise, and they deserve that benefit of the doubt. But the Chargers went out there and said, hey, we know you deserve the benefit of the doubt, but we are the people that are not going to give you that opportunity. And they dominated the Chiefs in every facet of the game. They didn't need to go out there and put a ton of points up or do anything extra. They just went out there and said, hey, this is a football game that we're playing. You're also playing this football game, but you guys are losing. And there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. Justin Herbert probably had the best week out of any single quarterback in the NFL during that game. It's not like it was a home field advantage. It was down in Brazil, so it was an awkward confines for both teams. If Justin Herbert continues to play like that, he is the MVP.
Yeah. Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert are trying to take this division away from the Chiefs. I will say, if we don't see Xavier Worthy go down early, we might see a different result to this game. That was awkward, and that I really think is what hurt the Chiefs that game. So we'll see what happens later in the season when these two teams meet again.
Yep.
But for now, the Chargers are number 2 because they looked great. And for our top team this week, number 1, it's the other team in that Sunday Night Football game, the Buffalo Bills. You know, they are currently the favorite to win the Super Bowl on most of your sports books, and for good reason. They came back from a 15-point deficit with 4 minutes left, and they showed that they can win in clutch moments. In key moments, they can take over a game, and they will win it if they so choose. And that's why they are the number 1 right now.
Yeah, if anyone else has any other team as their number 1 spot on this roster for your power rankings, I question your decision making. Again, yes, the Packers technically have the most wins in the NFL right now, but we typically try not to include Thursday night. We did include Thursday night in the reference of just going like, not only did they just prove it, but week 1 is always kind of hard to do power rankings for some of these teams.
I mean, they were still our number 5 even without week 2. I only brought it up because of those, the thank you Jerry chants and how easily they handled the Commanders.
They basically validated our parking with that week 2 game.
Exactly.
So going over to our bottom 5, again, we're not starting with the 32nd team. We're starting with, I think this is 28th, if I'm doing my math right. And that is the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers often last year found themselves in this spot often. Like the Panthers the last couple of years have been one of the worst teams in football. This is year 3 of Bryce Young. The excuses are starting to get very, very thin for him. You drafted a receiver in the first round last year. You drafted a receiver in the first round this year, and it was the top available wide receiver in this year's class with Tet McMillan. You couldn't get it done. You were making some really bad throws. You didn't play that great, and your defense is still really, really bad. So you went up against the Cardinals team that often also found themselves in this bottom 5 list many times last year. So this is a team that I can see continue to drop down this list just with how they play, but they should be thankful that they're only coming in at 28.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think over the last 3 years, there were only 2 or 3 weeks total combined over those 3 years where the Panthers were not in our bottom 5. And that was purely because other teams had looked so bad that week that we were like, oh, this team might be down there. And then the very next week, the Panthers would be like, whoa, hold my beer.
Yeah.
We belong in the bottom 5.
Yeah.
And starting out the season, here they are at number 28 yet again. The 29th ranked team is the New York Giants, who was another team that was at the bottom of this list a lot last year. They had a garbage season. They brought in 2 veteran quarterbacks and they drafted their future supposedly. So Russell Wilson didn't get it done. The Giants didn't score a single touchdown last week. They put up 6 points total, 2 field goals. That was all they were able to do. And honestly, I don't see them doing much better in the weeks to come unless they can figure out some way to create space for Malik Neighbors so Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart, any of them can find him. You have what arguably should be a top 5 wide receiver, if not top 3, just based on his skills and talent, and you're not utilizing him properly. Giants are one of the worst teams right now.
Yeah, this Giants team, we knew that coming into this season, there was going to be a lot of uphill battles, and The fact that they looked as bad as they did in week number 1 is not a great look. And this is a team that we could find themselves sliding all the way to that 32 spot. But yeah, the next team up on our list is the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans were the worst team in the league last year. They were. They deserved that number 1 spot. They weren't like one of those teams where it was just like, man, they were just kind of unlucky. They were just bad. The Titans were just simply bad. Drafted Cam Ward, who, has a really, really tough start to the season. Have to go into Denver to face the Broncos in that game. That's a tough challenge against that defense. Now you're going up against, I think it's the Rams they're facing this week. Again, another tough defense. It's a baptism by fire, essentially, for Cam Ward. But this is a team that still just doesn't have a lot of things going their way. They have no weapons. You put it best in the game prediction video where there was a wide receiver screen where all 3 wide receivers that could have potentially looked for the ball all decided to block, and Cam Ward is just standing there going, hey guys, someone over here, please.
Right? Not just block, but all block the same guy. There were 3 there to block 2 guys, which would have left the 1 catch in the pass to beat 1 dude. And all 3 of them went to block the same person. It's bad in Tennessee right now.
The funny thing is that Cam Ward almost won them that game but his receivers dropped the ball. But yeah, Tennessee Titans are at number 30 here for us.
Yes, they are. And at 31 is, honestly, this one's a little bit surprising because I think we came into this season expecting to have them at 32 almost the whole year. And that's the New Orleans Saints. They're at 31 right now, purely because the next team we talk about was a dumpster fire. But the Saints didn't look great. They were going up against, was it the Cardinals? Yeah, and sure, they put up a few points, but there's nothing on this team. It's CT ESPN's future analyst Chris Olave. It's Spencer Radler. Alvin Kamara is kind of the only bright spot, and the dude's like 31. And it's this Saints team is they're going through it right now. It's a rebuild, and it's going to be a long rebuild because they do not have any pieces in place to build around yet. And so the Saints, I will be shocked if at any point they leave our bottom 5 this season or even next season. They're kind of the new Panthers in that way, where I expect to see them in our bottom 5 consistently for a couple of years.
Yeah, the Saints team, this has always been my pick for the worst team in football for this season. You're gonna see that they're gonna have a lot of really high end struggles throughout the season. And yeah, last week against the Cardinals, who aren't necessarily a great team in their own right, I think we could have, if we had a bottom 10, we'd probably see the Cardinals in that bottom 10. But yeah, for our 32nd team in the NFL, well, it's the Miami Dolphins. That soft ass fucking team that complained all offseason like, oh, the Bears practice was too physical. Oh, this, and that. And then you go up against the Indianapolis Colts, who for me was the pick to be 31st for a majority of the season. The Dolphins made Daniel Jones look like primetime Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to be said. Like, how can you go into that game against the Colts with Daniel Jones as the quarterback and look that bad? And you go, okay, maybe that's just the defense. But what did the offense look like? Horrible. Tua looked like the worst starting quarterback in football.
Like he was throwing airmail balls, getting picked off. But you let Daniel Jones, formerly Danny Dimes, he wants to be called Indianapolis Jones now. And honestly, with the way he looked last week, maybe he deserves that. But you let him score on every drive. Every drive. Daniel Jones. This is the guy that has been the laughingstock of the New York Giants organization for the last 4 years. You let him embarrass you, Miami. Like, I went into our record predictions video a few weeks back, and I predicted the Dolphins to be the worst in the AFC East.
Yeah.
I didn't predict them to be one of the worst in the league. They look like they could rival the Saints for that first pick. I sent you a video this morning where it's Tyreek Hill, and he looks like he is right on the verge of an all-time great crash out right now. We could see Tyreek Hill pull an Antonio Brown if the Miami Dolphins keep playing this badly. We might see him just take his equipment and his jersey off right there on field and just abandon the team.
Say, I'm out.
It looks bad.
Yeah. You know what's bad, like when we're talking about a team, because like we every single year in week one we always see one team get embarrassed. That's just, it's just the simple nature of football. Like, and oftentimes we'll go, you know what, that team isn't great, but this it's week one. We can use this as an outlier. This is Daniel Jones playing quarterback, and you know, to me personally, after listening to all of the Dolphins players and Dolphins reporters after the Bears and Dolphins joint practice, and them saying, oh, the Bears were trying to be too physical, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, good, lose. Like, you guys are soft as baby shit. Like,
yeah,
you don't deserve to win. And my God, they should be embarrassed. And
yeah,
the worst part about the Dolphins is there is no clear path to get out of this situation because Tua is owed a shitload of money, and for a bunch of years, because if they were to cut him, they're in like that Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson situation of where it's like $73 million of dead cap over like the next 3 years. And that's a sorry place to be. And yeah, they deserve to be in that 32 spot, and
they do. They have a few more weeks like this, and we could start seeing a fire sale in Miami. Tyreek Hill gone, Jalen Waddle gone, Devin Achane gone. You know, even on the defensive side of the ball, we started seeing them ship more guys out. So, like, it's the Miami Dolphins. They really are soft serve right now. It's not good.
Soft serve is stronger.
They need to turn it around this week. Hopefully, when you guys are watching this, for the Miami Dolphins' sake, they had a phenomenal game yesterday and blow it out of the water so that we look like asses.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, and they looked as bad as they did in week one, it might be over for the Miami Dolphins already.
Yeah. Like right now, the Miami Dolphins are softer than all those silicone titties down in Miami, Florida.
Yeah. Softer than Tua Tagovailoa's skull.
Yeah. That is our top and bottom five. We didn't have a this or that this week. It was just kind of one of those things where it was kind of a little bit of a crazy week for both of us. And obviously, Sterling, with you not feeling as good as you possibly can, it's one of those things where we kind of just walked into the podcast today and we're like, do you have a this or that? No. So neither do I. Do you want to scramble for the next 10 minutes and try to find it? No. So, yeah, but
honestly, I was just fighting through it this week. You know, picked up a bug at work. We're in September now where, you know, all the factories are back at school, and then they get their parents sick and their parents bring the bugs to work, and it's just been kicking my ass. So I just heavily medicated trying to get through this pod this week, and hopefully I'll have a little more energy next week for you guys.
But yeah, thank you all very much for hanging out with us. For Sterling, I'm Brendan saying thank you very much. Peace.